Alright, so now we get to the interesting part, the pullback system. So it breaks out, and then when it pulls back, then we enter. And you can see we get a few nice trades here and there from this one. If I had to choose one, it would be, excuse me, I would choose to work with this. This obviously isn't something standalone you could use as is and expect to make money with it. Of course, however much money you would make would depend on your management, on how you exit the trade. And you would want to spend just as much time on your exit strategy as I've spent on building this mediocre signal here. So as it turns out, I have chosen to use the SMA 2 period rather than the close of the bar or the high or the low of the bar. So the initial signal is when the SMA 2 period, this purple line, crosses below for a short or above for a long. And that's just a crossover solver. It's very simple. So I have to, well, SMA 2, long short for indicator A. For indicator B, opening range, if it breaks above the high, give it a long. Breaks below the low, give it a short. Now this is pretty cool. What I did was, in order to get rid, because we don't want the initial signal. The initial signal is just the initial condition that we want to push forward so that we know to then take a pullback trade. So this is the initial signal that we're pushing forward, and the conditions that we want to enter on are these. Okay? So we want to eliminate that first signal, but first we want to extend it forward. So we have a signal extender, and I'm extending it like 50 bars. Well, not like 50 bars, but I have to reset it. If I don't reset the signal on the opposite signal, then here's what it will look like. It will just be giving the short and the long for the next 50 bars. Okay, and that's no good. So when we get the opposite signal from the input, and this is the solver going into the input. So when we get the opposite signal from the input, we want to reset this extension. So we set the input opposite signal to true. And then through the reset, we want the time session solver, when the time is up at after 2:30 p.m. can barely talk. After 2:30 p.m., when we get no signal from the time session solver, then we reset this signal. Okay, so reset no signal. And then to eliminate that first breakout, we use the counter. Okay, so that's what's happening here. This bar, it broke out, but it's counting that second signal. So from the second signal, it's staying. Let me cut this back to analog so you can see that first signal. It's eliminating that first signal because it's counting up to the second. If I were to set this to 3, well, there is no third signal, is there? Okay, well, yeah, because it's using the extender, right? And then if I set this to 4, you'll see it go up, right? So let's set this back to 2, and then we leave the look back period as low as the count. Okay, so that eliminates that first signal for us. Now the next step is, what do we want? Where do we want the pullback to come to? Well, we want it to pull back to the opening range high. And let's see, this bar is, the low is 101.92 and the high is 101.90. So that's 2 ticks. So what I've done here is I've set the small amount to 2 ticks. Let me run it through the long short modifier. So the long short modifier is a function node, and you have all these different modes. You can swap long for short. You can mirror the long, mirror the short, average, maximum, minimum, product. So we want product, because what it's done is it's multiplied the output for the short by the output for the long. So that's multiplying -1 by 0. What does that equal? 0. And then it's multiplying the output for the long times the output for the short, which is 0. So that's 1 times 0. That gives you 0. And then it's multiplying the output for the long times the output for the short here, which is 1 times -1. So well, that equals -1, but it's keeping both of them, is what it's doing. See? So that's pretty cool. And what I've done is, because I'm using the neutral, which would make it highlight when the low were equal to the high, or the opening range high, or the high of the bar equal to, I've also selected 2 ticks. So because we're using the neutral, that neutral coincides with the small amount here. So I can say also, when the bar is within 2 ticks, highlight it. Watch when I take this to 0 ticks. It eliminates those 2 bars and this bar, because they're all 2 ticks away. Low is 92. Opening range high is 90. Low is 92. Opening range high is 90. Low is 92. Opening range high is 90. So we'll put 2 ticks back in there, and then we'll highlight those bars. And this is the opposite for the opening range low. Do we have bars touching? Yes, right there. So either or. We want to highlight when both happen. Okay? But we only want this to be true when our initial condition, the SMA 2-period breakout, is true. So that's why we've connected all this together with an AND node, because we want all of this true at the same time. Okay, and then we're going to extend this signal forward a couple of bars, because we want, it's not always going to be that this bar is going to be an up bar. A lot of times it'll be a down bar, like it is in this case right here, and then the next bar will be an up bar, but it won't be close enough to the opening range high. So we've extended it forward a couple of bars, which is really only 1 bar. It's 2 including the bar, including itself. So you can just see right there, it really only moves it forward 1 bar. So that has to be true. That's our pullback. And then also, one of these 3 conditions must be true. The SMA 2 slope of the current bar must be against the trade. So if the slope is negative, it gives us a long signal. Or if the slope 1 bar ago, so I've displaced it 1 bar. You see that? So if the slope of the SMA 2 period 1 bar ago, you see it shift forward 1. Watch this. I'll connect it back. That's the current slope of the bar, and this is the slope of 1 bar ago for the current bar. And then this is the slope 2 bars ago for the SMA 2 period for the current bar. So you see it. This is current bar, 1 bar ago, 2 bars ago. So one of these 3 has to be against the trade, which will give us a long signal. Long signal when it's coming down, short signal when it's coming up. So that is telling us that we have indeed actually had one of the past 3 bars has come down to the opening range high, or one of 3 bars has gone up to the opening range low. So that also has to be true at the same time as all of this. And then this condition. This is saying the SMA 2 period of 2 bars ago was above the opening range high for a long, or below the opening range low for a short. So this is just saying that we've actually, the SMA 2 period is actually broken up and out of the opening range high, and now it's pulling back, and it hasn't pulled back so deep inside the range that 2 bars ago isn't inside. It's still up above the opening range high, so it has to stay above the opening range high for a long, stay below the opening range low for a short, the SMA 2 period. So either the one 2 bars ago, displaced 2, or the one 3 bars ago. And there are certain situations in which this was necessary. So that also has to be true at the same time as all of this. And then, so does this, which just says that the high of the bar has to remain above the opening range high for a long, and the low of the bar has to remain below the opening range low for a short. That's just a little added requisite there, a little added condition that must be true to give a long or a short. Okay, and being that this is for minute bars, tick bars, volume bars, we can use the bar direction solver, and then this is our doji condition that we built in the other ones. So all of that has to be true as well. The bar direction, the bar has to be an up bar for a long, or a doji that's closing above the halfway point of the bar. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Now I may as well go over real quick the one for the range bar. And this is also the same as the previous 2. You can say you only want to allow 1 trade a day. In that case, you leave this signal counter set to 2. For 1 trade per day in each direction. Or if you want 2 trades per day in each direction possible, then set it to 3, and this doesn't need to be set to 200, not for the minute. Well, I'll leave it like that in case you use it on a 1 minute chart. So you'll need to go in and adjust this for each chart that you're messing with. Please don't try to use this as it is to try and trade with and make money, because you won't. It won't make money, I can guarantee you. Now let's go to the range, opening range pullback. Let me add a range chart here. And the only difference between the range and the minute is this. For the one that's set up for the minute bars, I'm able to use the bar direction solver, and for this one, everything else is the same except for this. So instead of using the bar direction solver and the doji solver, I'm using this this comparison solver, and I'm using the closing price. If the closing price is equal to the high, give me a long. If it's equal to the low, give me a short. Because a range bar, an up range bar, or a doji that's closing on the high, So I mean, every range bar closes on its high or its low. Either it's an up closing doji or an up candle. So this is just saying if the closing price is equal to the high, then give me a long signal. If it's equal to the low, give me a short signal. So that's really the only difference between the two, between this opening range pullback range bars entry and the opening range pullback minute tick volume bars entry. And that's the only difference. Okay, so you've got, it's already set up for, you know, range bar or the minute bars. So we've got the pullback for the minute bars. I'm sorry, we've got the breakout for the minute bars. We've got the pullback for the range bars, the breakout for the range, and then the pullback for the minute and the tick. So I think that pretty well explains it. Let's just kind of look through this one for the range bar setup. Couple of bad signals. It's not going back very far. It's not going back far enough at all, but you got a couple of good entries there. And here, and that should have, oh, it's because of the signal blocker. Okay, well you can tweak all that. Okay, so that you know, if you have any specific questions, just ask me. I think that's about all the time I'm willing to spend on making these videos for this thing. Alright, so I hope this helps. Good luck with it.